As women across the world are still basking in the celebratory mood of the International Women's Day, they have called for more inclusion in every strata of the society. Dr. Oladuni Owo, National President, Women in Energy, Oil and Gas, as well as Lucy Okeke, Lagos Chapter Secretary. Women of the same group were in Arise News earlier, where they advocated for women's rights and sought for ways to sustain relevance for the female gender.
Happy International Women's Day out there. And it's not just a day, actually, it's the entire month. So you're going to see a lot of Mother's Day and several other celebrations across the entire month. Well, talking about Nigeria, I think we have improved from where we were. And even the governments of the day have been quite supportive. It's part of their agenda, something they have put on the radar to see how we can have an equitable nation cut across different industries and strata of life. Because of our cultural background and practices, maybe the equality is not really the word we emphasize. Even for us women, we would rather just pick the gender diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, this year's hashtag for International Women's Day is focused on inspiring inclusion. Thank you.
All right, Lucy, looking at this year's theme, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress, how much of that scenario is applicable to the Nigerian woman now?
Okay, thank you very much. And like my national president just said, happy International Women's Day. In Nigeria, we are making giant strides towards including women into the mainstream of the oil and gas industry. We're not there yet, but you can see across all the streams of the industry, the private sector, the public sector, you can see even charities and NGOs like the Women in Energy, Oil and Gas. You can see us trying to push our boundaries, making our voices to be heard, having a seat on the table. Wherever the discourse of the energy, oil and gas is taking place, you find that we ensure that our voices are heard. So how it applies to us in the energy, oil and gas industry, we are advocating for more inclusion. We're advocating for government to provide funding, to provide resources, to give access to education to women, to give a level playing field for women to lend their voices, to progress, to be successful in their businesses, in their careers. So you see that happening. And you see, as the women in energy, oil and gas, we do not sit down, we show up. We make sure that regardless of our responsibilities as women, we are there to walk our talk, to be role models, to provide mentorship for the girls in STEM, to just encourage the women to make sure that we have an inclusive government. You would agree with me that an inclusive government is a government that has more everyone giving ideas and all of that, has better solutions, better ideas. So that is why we're here today, to just lend our voices to inclusion, and not just inclusion, like you said, diversity and gender balance.
Listening to you,
yes,
I'm really encouraged. But at the same time, permit me to, I don't know if social media is a barometer to judge the women of today, because it seems the women of your generation have a different struggle from the women in this Gen Z generation. Because when you hear them speak, when you hear them talk, you're speaking about STEM, which is supposed to be the bedrock for several things that should happen. But the women of the Gen Zs, they're no more, probably, maybe I might be wrong, if you can correct me. The struggle is very different. The perspective towards life is completely different. How do you balance it up? Or how do you level up to get everyone to sing in concerts when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to representation, when it comes to equity, like you said? I'd like to hear from both of you.
Okay, so let me go first. When you talk about the Gen Zs are not waiting for you to have a seat at the table. They are very confident in what they want. They are very confident in their abilities. They're not waiting for anyone to give them a seat at the table. So what we do as Weog is to make sure that we are role models, make sure that we have mentoring frameworks for the Gen Zs to come on stream. And you said something about women of our generation. That is no excuse. Being a woman born in the 70s or in the 60s, as the case may be, doesn't mean that you should not be aware of using the social media.
No, now where I'm going to
Yes.
is this, is that probably women of your generations
Yes.
probably have your priorities right, as against women's in the Gen Z generation that are more about give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. What can I get for myself? Not fighting for what will advance the cause of women. Because the essence of the International Women's Day is to highlight the problems that women do face in life generally, be it physical, marital, career-wise, and in every sector. But some people feel
Yes.
when you see people express themselves on social media that they're not so keen on having things balanced or having things rise to a particular pedestal. They're more about just sitting back and receiving as against striving.
Okay, if I may just lend my voice to that.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is, it's a different world. And I haven't noticed that. What we try to do is to try and bring them close and create, just like she mentioned, mentorship framework.
Okay.
To kind of balance the two generations, because their generation is like an entitled generation. So they know what they want, kind of, by virtue of the kind of exposure out there, social media. So it is now to redirect that exposure to the right strata and not just on everything they see out there. So what we probably even started this year is to bring in some of these young professionals and students to let them see the realities of life. So we inaugurated and inducted about 120 students, studying different courses. And as a matter of fact, we didn't even just limit it to those studying engineering or oil and gas or petroleum engineering. We said, if you're an accountant, come on, come on. You can also work in this industry. You're a lawyer, come on. We need legal people that can make the industry work. So we bring them in. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, I just approved for one to come into our hub in VI. She said she doesn't have a job. I said, okay, come in twice a week or thrice a week, anyone you can do, and come and learn. Come and volunteer. You were like, volunteer? I said, yes. I started in this industry as a volunteer. I said, how? What? Those kind of questions, the way they will even be asking you and all that. So we try to bring them in. Because if you don't bring them in, they will just get all sort of information out there on social media and just think that's the way life is. But by the time the reality now eats them, we have already lost them. So what we do is we are very deliberate and intentional about bringing them in. So we create programs. When we do conferences now, like those big fat conferences we do in Nigeria, we bring them in. They man our booths. Just this last OTL conference, they manned the booths. The senator in charge of downstream, for instance, met them, and he had left. Then he came back and took pictures with them. So up till today, they are still like, oh, the senator took pictures and all that. So those are ways we are using subtlety. We're doing training programs and all that. These days, they don't even want to do IT again. As in, do you know, I got, there was a time I got a youth copper that told me, please, ma, I don't want to serve. I said, I don't understand. She said she's doing something somewhere, so I should just be signing for. I said, this is not the place you will get that. So I had to just tell NYC to take her back. So it's an orientation that I would say some of us of this generation made that mistake in while bringing them up. We didn't want them to suffer what we suffered, but in the course of not making them, go through what we went through, we now spoiled them. So that entitlement mentality, in those days, you have to do JAMB how many times to get to Ife or Unilag. These days, even if you don't pass JAMB, just go to a private university somewhere. So they had it easy. And then, of course, because of the knowledge age, information is everywhere. So we are helping them to rechannel that energy into something positive. Helping them. Some of them, they will tell you from one set, I don't want to work for anybody. I said, okay, so if you don't want to work for, how do you learn? Okay, so at least schedule working for like 2, 3, maybe 5 years, and then you can go do what you want to do. Say, okay, maybe I will consider that. So mentorship, and not just theoretical mentorship. It has to be like really, there will be some one-to-one, there will be interactions, bring them on practical, let them come to the office, do 1 month, do 2 weeks, come twice a week, during conferences, let them be the ones to man the booth, let them come around, let them see realities of life, whether they like it or not. That reality at one point will still dawn.
True. I'm glad you mentioned the word reality. So, Lucy, is it all about celebrating International Women's Day? What should come next in according women their dues regarding all of this?
Okay, so I'd like to talk about this from different perspectives. Incidentally, I was a speaker at an event yesterday, and I charged the women in this oil and gas company to be aware of their responsibilities. So we're looking at it from different perspectives. As a woman, you have to know your personal responsibilities. You have to be self-aware, you have to be self-motivated, you have to have a mentor, a coach. You have to be intentional about all of this. For the government has their responsibilities as well to provide the regulatory framework for inclusion, for diversity, for more women participation across all levels, across all the value chain of the oil and gas industry, to provide a level playing field. For instance, the government also has a role to play in the private sector to demand for their gender and diversity data, for the transparency information. So the government has a role to play. The individuals also have a role to play as women.
Yeah, very good.
All right. As we try to wrap up this discussion, this whole movement and this struggle cannot be complete without men. Do you think these days men have understood the role of women and how important womanhood and the role they play in the evolution of society is dawning on them? How would you assess men in the 21st century or in 2024? Because men, I know, need to assist women. Because when we talk about women in business, some women had to actually say that there were men that stood their grounds and insisted that women must get equity, must get inclusion, must get a seat on the table. And these men are the ones that help engineer and strengthen the arms of the women that have brought them this far. Talk to us about the men in the 21st century.
All right, thank you very much. And that's a very important point, actually, because no matter, there's that saying that no matter how much or how many rags, how many new clothes you have, somebody has the rags. So I'll use my industry, that's the energy, oil and gas industry, as a case study, which is traditionally known to be a male-dominated industry.
Sure. And
then what we see is, do you know, sometimes some men even ask, do we even have women engineers in this nation? You know, but we have very few. They are beginning to come up, I must say that. We call them the E for She's. They are there to encourage. They are there to give you ideas. They are there to support. We also have the group that once they see that you're coming together, they are there to scatter you. That, these women, they've started. You know, they want to scatter you. They don't want you to actually achieve that which you had set to achieve. And then we also have the ones that are just neutral. They're just looking. What we do in Weog is to find a way to identify those few E for She's with the right skill and leadership skill, most importantly, that we can lean on. So, for instance, on our advisory board, we have some industry veterans that we go to every now and then to advise us on what to do. Some of them are our spokespersons, some of them are even our lobbyists, even to governments, you know, and they've been pretty supportive. And we've even graduated their name from E for She's to Energy Heroes, you know, and I believe more can join them. What we have also done is to let the men know that we are not competing with them. We have only come to help. The men had been in the oil and gas industry for 60 years since oil was first discovered in Oloibiri. And up till now, Nigeria is still struggling. Up till now, we still don't have enough. Up till now, we are 7th largest gas reserve in the world, and there is so much poverty in the land. So we have come to say we want to be your helpmates. So with that kind of openness, we get more, okay, maybe we can see how we can help you get into this industry. And we see men beginning to understand that we are not coming to take their position as the head. You remain the head. We are the neck. We are not necessarily hammering on the equality, but at least let there be gender diversity, let there be equity, and let there be inclusion.
Indeed.
So can I also say
briefly, please.
Okay,
briefly.
yes, please.
Briefly.
Okay, so as well as, in addition to what my national president has said, I think when we all understand the uniqueness of our gender, we will not have the issues we're talking about today. So as women, we need to understand the uniqueness of our genders, our innate strength, our ability, the ability for us to think on our feet, the ability for us to multitask, the innate ability, divine ability given to us by God to nurture. When we know we have those strengths in us, and yes, then we'll have more, we'll be able to do more in the oil and gas industry and the nation as a whole.
Indeed, on that final note,
Yes.
Dr. Oladuni Owo, National President, Women in Energy, Oil and Gas, and of course, Lucy Okeke, the Lagos Chapter Secretary. I'd like to thank you both for coming on this occasion. It's good to have you with us.